if you're a traditionally published author, are you allowed to read sections of your book online for marketing purposes? Now, unlike indie authors, traditionally published authors have signed away the rights to their novel to their publisher. And for the duration of their contract, that publisher gets to determine what people can and cannot do with that book, including the author. If you have signed over to a publishing house, they are now in control of all marketing. So before you can get on a live stream and read your book, before you can read a section of your book, a chapter, a paragraph, a sentence, you do have to talk to your publisher and you have to get permission to make that TikTok or that YouTube video or that live stream. You actually have to ask permission to do public readings of your own books in libraries and schools and things like that. And for the most part, your publisher is going to be very accommodating because they want the marketing, but you do have to get that permission in advance. You have to run your marketing by your publisher because they're in control of the narrative, they're in control of those sales, and they are in control of the decisions to be made. So as a traditionally published author, you don't have the freedom that indie authors have of creating their own marketing to get those sales by reading their books, by using lines from their books, by showing off paragraphs. You have to run all of that by your marketing team or whoever is in charge of you at that publishing house and get their permission first. And like I said, in almost every circumstance, they are going to approve that because they want you to market it. Every once in a while, they'll say, no, you can't read that much. You can't read an entire chapter. You can't read it chapter by chapter. You can't do X, Y, and Z with this, but you can do this. So typically, if they have to say no, they'll give you some type of alternative or you can discuss the alternatives. But when all is said and done, the publisher is going to have final say. They will get to determine if you can go on someone's podcast and read part of your novel. They will determine if you can put a first chapter reading on your YouTube page. They're the ones determining what you can and cannot do in terms of using that as part of the whole book. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go online and talk about your book and show the behind the scenes and all those things. It just means that the copyrighted material, the book itself, is something that you cannot use without their express permission because you signed away that permission to them. They now have control over that. So depending on who you're working with, you might have the easiest time. They might say, yep, do whatever you want. Or they might say, do whatever you want within these boundaries. Or they might say, no. In which case, if they say no, you cannot move forward with that. So if you have a plan to read part of, section of, a couple lines from your book, you need to run it through your publisher before you create that content. And if you want, if you're somebody who's like a prolific content creator, you can create it first and say, hey, I did this thing. Is it approved for me to put online, and show them the finished product? But that might be a lot of work on your part. So if you're going to do more than just like a couple of lines, maybe ask before you create the content, because if you take 30 minutes, an hour to read a chapter or two of your novel, and then you're not allowed to use it, that's just wasted time. So make sure especially for bigger projects, you're checking first and then putting that content out online, and be sure that you're ready to make your case. If you say, hey, I want to read the first chapter of my book on my YouTube channel, a lot of them might say, no, we don't want that. If you come with a good logical case, this is why it's important for me to read this so that it hooks people in and gets people to buy the book, and you lay out your case on why, you can convince them and change their mind before you get started. Don't do it as a rebuttal. You can try it as a rebuttal to their no, but chances are they've already had their mind set. If you come to them and say, hey, I have this idea. I want to read the first chapter of my novel on my YouTube page. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's how I'm hoping that it benefits us. Here's how I'm hoping that we can all leverage it, and how you can put it on your website or send it out in the newsletter, how we can all benefit from this, and bring them this really great fleshed out idea, they're much more likely to say yes. So just be wise about how you do this. Have a plan going into it. Don't be all willy-nilly and spur of the moment with this one. Make sure you have a plan ready to go and convince them to say yes. Then you can create your content. And if you really, really want to be able to use your content, the book that you've written the way that you want, then indie life is probably a better fit for you than trad life. And keep that in mind before you get into a situation that you might regret being in. Drop your question on this down below and follow along for more as I continue to help you grow, whether you're an indie, a hybrid, or a traditionally published author. Hybrid specifically being both indie and trad, not like a vanity press hybrid. We need some better words in this publishing space. Helping you to grow your author platform so that this can be your most profitable, fun, and successful author year ever, so you can live your best author life while also still having a life. We'll see you in tomorrow's episode.